you talked about Buddhism. How is it related to India? As far as my knowledge goes, Buddha was born in Nepal, and Buddhism started in Nepal. So this is sort of the Nepal sort of claiming, that why are Indians promoting Buddhism or accepting it or something. Several answers to this question. First, there was no nation of Nepal at the time Buddha was born. So it's a more recent creation than at that time. You can say Buddha was born in a certain place which is modern day Nepal. That is correct. But Buddha achieved his enlightenment not in Nepal. And he is buried, his remains are not in Nepal. So, and his teachings, the major Buddhist, the spread of Buddhism with Emperor Ashoka was not in Nepal. And the major viharas, the Nalanda and various viharas, actually the word Bihar, which is a state, I think many Caribbeans come from Bihar. Gulcharan comes from Bihar. And Bihar is probably the most populated state, or UP after UP or something, one of the most populated states. The word Bihar is actually Vihar, and it means institution of learning. When I tell this to my Bihari friends, they don't believe it. I say, you come from the world center of learning. It's like Ivy Leagues in Northeast, that sort of place. So that was, because there were so many Vihars, it got the name Vihar. And Nalanda was just one of them. And that was the sort of preeminent Buddhist center. So, whether somebody is born, but when he was born, he was not a Buddhist, by the way. When he got enlightenment, he became. If you want to nitpick, these are all points that you have to worry about. But I think we should not nitpick. I never in my statement said that he was born in India or anything like that. I never said. I said that from various centers in India like Nalanda, that knowledge was exported to other places, which is true regardless of where he was born. So I don't think it's much of a big deal, but if it makes some people happy, then we can always say born in modern day, born in what is now Nepal, and we can sort of put a footnote to that. There's no problem. This is a question that wants to know why the West, the Indian Dharma-based civilization is alive and well with over 30 languages and states and hundreds of subcultures under the Hindu Dharma umbrella. So what is the problem in recognizing, for the West to recognize the greatness of this tradition? Are they so exclusive and close-minded? Now, I already answered that in this book, that the West has its own axioms of exclusivity in the Western religions, and therefore when they encounter another faith, they have to understand that other faith in terms of their own axioms. And so a lot of what we call Hinduism today got defined or redefined or distorted as a result of the Western gaze upon Indian traditions. And this Western gaze reformulated as Hinduism is what they started calling it. And a lot of Indians, Hindus, including gurus, what they are teaching of Hinduism is a modern adaptation. That is also true. So we have to decolonize ourselves, and we can blame them and say, why are they like that? But we can't change somebody else, we can change ourselves. So I think we have to go deeper into our tradition and understand our own dharma and some of the distortions that we have accepted in our own dharma, that somebody else taught us, and because of the English language, because of the system of education. Ram Mohan Roy, very highly celebrated in Indian history, is an Indian, Bengali, who wanted to remove certain things from our dharma because that would make it more acceptable to the British. So that's an example where our own guy did that, and of course he flirted between Christianity and Hinduism and kind of crossed back and forth, and he converted to Unitarianism and so forth. So I think it's also our own people, and the trend goes on today. a lot of gurus come and oversimplify, dilute, because they'll get more converts, they'll get more Western converts, they'll get more money. If they get the more complicated, genuine concepts out of the way, and by making it look too simple and making it look like the same as Christianity, which they often do, they can get ahead faster. So that distortion is also going on from our own people. What do you think about the paradox of Hindus projected negatively in the West when Hindus are intellectual ancestors of Greek, Latin, the intellectual ancestors of the West, separate, and so on? Well, I am not sure that we are the intellectual ancestors of the Greek. We've had a older civilization and lots of transmission, lot of influences have gone there. But I wouldn't say that they didn't have anything of their own. Obviously, X influences Y, but Y also has many other things which they develop on their own. So I would say that many Indian ideas went elsewhere, but they also developed their own selves. The question of negative projection has nothing to do with that. There are two separate issues. One is we need to correct the history of Indian influences upon various civilizations. That's a project we should do. Now, why are we projected negatively is a separate question, and I did a book called Invading the Sacred, which was released in 2007, and those of you who are interested in getting a copy, I have a whole lot of them in Princeton, so you can leave your name and address and I'll send it to you. It's a 550-page book which answers this very question. Who are the academicians? What is their agenda? What are some of the distortions? I've had 15 years of arguments and debates with them. I gotten myself almost blacklisted so that a lot of them tell each other, don't talk to this guy, because I raise these issues with them. So I'm quite familiar with the negative portrayal of Hinduism. However, that negative portrayal is a problem. Whether we influenced Greek or not, the negative portrayal is still a problem. Even if we never influenced Greek, negative portrayal should not happen. So I would decouple those two. Then there's a philosophical question on the Greek Aristotelian science is empirical and dharmic adhyatma vidya is empirical. What is the difference? Now, the dharmic adhyatma vidya, the inner science, the yogi, the meditator, he achieves a state of higher consciousness, and he writes about it. And we call it empirical in the sense that it is not some claim of history that somebody else had a prophet came and he said this. It is not, because it is not claimed like that. I have experienced it. The person has direct experience of this state of enlightenment, and therefore it is an empirical claim. Whether it is true or false is another matter, but it is an empirical claim. And this is an inner empirical claim as opposed to an outer empirical claim about something, a laboratory experiment that you're doing under the microscope, you're measuring some things, or you're looking at a telescope, and different scientists can verify that empirical claim. So adhyatma means inner. It's an inner experiment or an inner experience, and therefore the empirical claim is of an inner nature. Now, the question we were discussing yesterday over lunch with Professor Weeb, that genuine question is, how do you verify it? If it's a telescope looking at something that you have discovered, many people can look at it and say, okay, we agree with you, and you can look at it through many telescopes and you can agree with it. If it's an inner discovery that the inner scientist has had, the yogi or the rishi has had, the question of verifiability comes in. In that respect, it is different. The verifiability in the Indian system was done as follows. The person, the rishi having that experience, would teach the technique to others, and others would then practice it, and they would have that experience, and then they would describe it to each other. Of course, the person who is going to critique this claim would say that how do you know it was not wishful thinking? Maybe the rishi who's the guru has his experience, and then he teaches 50 students, and 20 of them have that experience, but maybe they are just imagining it. And so the inner experience is not as easily verifiable empirically as the empirical domain which is outside. However, today there is a machine called a functional MRI, which is a neuroscientific machine. And when these meditators are doing the meditation, Buddhist, Hindu meditators, these neuroscientists are looking at the brain, the brain chemistry, or the brain, the map of the brain, which is color coded, and they are looking at, they're able to tell a certain amount. The resolution is very crude of this machine. It's not very, very highly refined yet, but the technology is getting better. So maybe the day will come when the inner states, which yogi claims, will have a very, very refined and accurate correlate in the machine, and you'll be able to verify that what this guy is claiming is the same thing as what that guy is claiming in terms of state. That may happen. So here's a question which says that aspects in Vedic Dharma that contributed to weaknesses. Interesting. Number one, he says Kshatriya Dharma, political and military power. Number two is Brahmin Dharma, individual weakness, lack of positive. I'm not sure I understand the question, but he's talking about Varna. And I agree that the Varna to me means social capital. There is the intellectual social capital, there is the political social capital, and there is the business, wealth creation social capital. A society has these three kinds of social capital, and these are the Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, leaders. And so I think the weakness happened when we actually gave up all of these. The colonizers first took over the commerce, and they became the Vaishyas. The East India Company came as Vaishyas. They took over the trade and the manufacturing, and they used this wealth to replace the kings, the Kshatriyas, and they became the government. So they also became the Kshatriyas. And then finally they changed the language from Sanskrit to English. They got rid of Brahmins. They replaced the education system, which is what the Brahmins were in charge of. So then they also took over the Brahmin Varna. So one by one the Varnas got taken over, and in a sense we all became Shudras because we were all working for them without having our own social capital. And so now that India is independent, I think the Vaishya is reviving very well. There are a lot of these billionaires. There are a lot of Indian billionaires. That's the new Vaishya. So they are very proud that, out of the top 10 billionaires in the world, so many are Indian, things like that. I'm actually not very proud of that because I think I see a lot of wealth being concentrated into a few people and then it being drained out of India, but that's a separate discussion. We don't have a revival of Kshatriyas because the politicians are generally corrupt. So the corrupt politicians means the Kshatriya Varna is corrupted today. That's a problem. And then as far as the Brahmin Varna is concerned, it's kind of mixed up. A lot of them have not kept up with their tradition. A lot of them are not even complying with their tradition. And the intellectual R&D, thinkers, researchers, we need more of those. So the point is we now, after independence, have an opportunity to revive the three kinds of social capital which keep a nation happy, keep a nation healthy. This says what you call Indian civilization is actually Hindu civilization. So why are you calling it Indian and not Hindu? And to what extent do you think Western civilization has influenced Hindu civilization to make it syncretic? So the first question, why am I calling it Indian and not Hindu? Well, you can call it, I call it dharmic. I call it dharmic civilization because dharmic is a better word than Hindu. Dharmic also includes Buddhists and Jains, and all the dharmas that originated in India are included in the Dharma civilization. That's the term I use in this book is Dharma civilization. And the other reason I prefer that is because you avoid the controversy. If you want to make a very hard-hitting point, you don't want ancillary points that are used by somebody to divert the topic. And people will divert your attention by saying Hindu is a recent word, then you will say no, it's not. So to avoid the controversy of Hindu versus Indian versus Dharma, the one word which nobody will argue is Dharma. No critic denies that this is originated in that place. It is all encompassing. It includes all the schools of thought. Ramakrishna Mission made a high court petition that they are not Hindu. Yeah, because they wanted to be minorities. They would get some minority benefits. So they filed a case that they are not Hindu. Some ISKCON people will say, we're not Hindu. They won't participate in Hindu groups. A lot of people like that. A lot of some,
Some people like these Brahma Kumaris will say, we are not Hindu. But if you ask them, are you dharmic? They'll say, are we dharmic? So I do not want unnecessary battles and unnecessary wars, quibbling over categories, when my agenda and when my goal is a certain kind of an encounter, which is very clearly defined. So I want to focus my energies and my ammunition on that encounter, rather than using categories which will then create fragmentation on our own side. I don't want that. That's why I did not use Hinduism. Now, to what extent is Western civilization influenced us? Yes, it has influenced us a lot. Even though we sent mathematics, certain kinds of mathematics, we got back a lot of stuff. We got iPads, we got aeronautics, we got modern technology. So the West is not to be denied the credit which is due. It would not be in the right spirit to deny the credit where it's due. West has, over the last few hundred years, done a huge amount of work in science and technology, and exported it to the whole world, and we are happy that they've done that. I'm not wanting this history to be rewritten in such a way that other people's contributions is denied. I just want that ours should also be added. So we are adding some more. We're not taking away from anybody else's credit. Then there is a question which says, what are your views on the caste system and the treatment of Dalits in Hindu religion? Well, caste is a very caste is not a Sanskrit word. The Sanskrit word is varna and jati. And this got collapsed, the two-dimensional matrix got collapsed into a one-dimensional hierarchy under the colonial rule. Casta is a Portuguese word. And the Lord Risley, who was influenced by Macaulay and by Max Muller and by Darwin, he was appointed the guy in India to study the society and organize, structure it, and what's the taxonomy of Indian society. And he came up with a hierarchy, which was prior to the work being done in India. The British had been looking at this as a race. They were coming up with something called race science. In the 1800s, there was an official, formal discipline called race science, which is a science of racial superiority, and there were people going around measuring skulls and noses and different things to see, how you classify races based on measurements, and that's how races were defined at that point in time. So this guy came and he wanted to classify Indians according to some criteria. So he classified the jatis into a certain hierarchy and called them castes, and started the census of India. Each 10 years there was a census of India, 1881, 1891, 1901, 1911, like that. And he was in charge for several decades of the census of India, and he made official the caste categorization of Indian jatis. So there was a very fluid jati structure. Sometimes the jati would go up or it would go down depending on the economic conditions and what your professional specialty was as a jati. If a particular crop you are doing is going up in value, you would go up. If it's not, or if there is famine, you would go down in value. So it was an economically driven up and down. And this was frozen as a long-term permanent thing. And after independence, Indian government, rather than challenging that caste structure and coming up with something different, they simply accepted it, made it part of the constitution, and now it has become part of politics. So you use that caste category of Lord Risley to fight for affirmative action and quotas. So it has become a kind of a self-defeating thing. Now, as far as the treatment of Dalits is concerned, it is regretted. It is something that it is incumbent on Hindu society. Whoever may have caused it, whatever may have been the cause, whosever fault it was, it doesn't matter. If there's a problem and it's a legitimate problem today, it has to be solved. So the solutions are there. There are problems still, but if you look at statistical data on the advancement of the lower castes, or the people who are called lower castes, Dalits and so on, there has been an advancement over the last 60 years in terms of the jobs, the percentage of jobs they're able to get, the percentage of Dalits in the parliament and governors and in higher office has been increasing. So it's sort of like the problems that are faced by minorities elsewhere. You are not going to have an overnight solution, but I think it's a better solution than some kind of violence or separatism or fragmentation, which I discuss in my Breaking India book, the problems of trying to incite violence based on those kind of categories. So that's how I feel about it. Indian Dharma approach is not backed by military and political power. Okay? Western exclusivist approach is backed by military and political power. Do you think Indian Dharma approach will survive when faced with the Western one? I think the biggest threat to Dharma is not that the West will come with a big army and battleships and invade and say, okay, we are going to take over. It's not like the Islamic invasion, military kind of invasion. I don't think that is the threat. So the military issue raised here is not the problem. I think the problems are that not using military, but using money, there's a lot of conversion going on. So a lot of Dharma can be wiped out, not using weapons of military kind, but just, other methods. Also, we're being digested, and we are happily being digested. We are being digested with many of our leaders thinking it's a very good thing that's happening. It's like a deer saying, I think if the tiger puts me in his stomach, it's good because I'll become part of the tiger. And tiger will run fast and I will go with him and I'll be part of the tiger. So there is a lot of Indians who are our gurus and spiritual leaders, Deepak Chopra included, who feel that if there is no such thing as a separate dharma left, but we just become part of Western universalism by donating to them the parts that are useful, let them digest and let the West take over all the good things that we offer and make it part of Christianity or Judaism or Western universalism or whatever, and we cease to exist as a separate entity. They often argue, I get arguments from Indians, they often argue, what's wrong with that? That's good. So the disappearance of Dharma as a distinct entity is most likely to happen with parts of Dharma being taken apart and assimilated and digested into Western universalism, and what is not considered useful being put in a museum or being thrown out. So I don't think it's military that we have to fear, but these more sophisticated and subtle mechanisms. Then there is a question which says, the type of multiculturalism you're proposing is more of an ideal than what is practiced by many countries because of politics, and it all eventually leads to assimilation and digestion. And it's not a question; it's a comment. And I'm saying, yeah, there is a tendency. There is a tendency that people will, after some generations, when they come to Canada or USA or wherever, they will, in order to assimilate into the mainstream, they will stop being who they are, they will lose their language, they'll lose their sense of history. But there's also the reverse trend, meetings like this, meetings like Bal Vihar, there are various organizations. You're going to have something on May 26th this year, to celebrate the coming of Indo-Caribbeans to North America. So with the awareness of multiculturalism and different ethnicities, there is also a revival coming. There's also a revival of that. And black culture in the United States, Hispanic culture in the United States, and I'll tell you about United States because I know more about it. I studied that. I mean, they are quite secure and powerful in propagating that from one generation to the next. And US will become a non-white majority country in the next few decades. US. I don't know where Canada is, but maybe something similar. So, it's also therefore up to us to protect and teach our children and have enough investment in organizations that are perpetuating our identity. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that we must get digested and disappeared. I think there is a good chance that we can actually do well. Plus the economic rise of Asia gives us some money and resources and credibility, and we don't have to have a kind of shame by association that we are all kind of, because we are all poor, so we should be ashamed of that identity. I think that particular factor is not there. And so there is a chance that some of these cultures may do very well. Then there is one, besides not translating some words, what are other key strategies for not getting digested? Now that's probably my most favorite question so far. That whole book, Being Different, is an answer to that question. I'm explaining what areas of difference are so important that you must understand what it is that makes you distinct. When you say you're a Hindu or you're a dharmic person, what is it that is distinct about you? That, and as long as you hang on to that, and as long as you don't let go of that, you can be diplomatic, you can be friendly, you can have give and take of cultural items back and forth, sharing of cultures, cross-fertilization, all of that is fine. But those particular items which are identified, you should not give up. And I'll be more than happy, when there's more time someday, to come and go through a longer workshop and go through each one of those differences in a more detailed workshop. If people are interested, I'm happy to do that. But it's more of a workshop topic because it goes through a very serious analysis of what are the differences that are not so serious, that are not so significant. They can be digested and moved. They're trivial. They're cosmetic. I call them cosmetic differences. And what are the differences which are really material, that really matter? And then show how such a distinct position from the Dharma side does not easily exist in the other side. It does not easily exist in the other side. So if we can hang on to this position, we have something of value that will not get digested easily. That's my methodology. Is your organization or any other organization known to you doing anything to stop conversion of Indian population? Well, my organization is not a political organization or a grassroots organization. We are a think tank. We are thinkers, researchers, scholars. We write. We can publish and disseminate knowledge. And we think that our knowledge has been influencing many other organizations who then take this kind of knowledge and do different things with it. I feel there are lots of anti-conversion organizations in India. There is certainly a lot more awareness. One of the items I brought up in my book, Breaking India, that's my previous book, is how in Tamil Nadu some of the churches and Western funding sources are encouraging separatist NGOs and giving them money and empowerment and causing trouble through them. And you might have heard there is a nuclear plant in Tamil Nadu where there was agitation by local NGOs, and the government started doing some inquiries. I was called and asked what I thought of it, and I sent them a copy of my book to read because I named some of those people. And so recently they arrested some of those people because they found that they were in fact foreign funded and foreign influenced, and they were creating all this agitation. And the reason there was foreign interference is because India had chosen a Russian nuclear reactor, not from a Western country. So the church did some work to create some trouble. And so this is being investigated. So now the government is also becoming a bit concerned that all this foreign money in the name of human rights and church evangelism could have political motives of interference. And India is not the first country where the West has done this. You look at South America, you look at all kinds of countries where in the name of evangelism and or human rights, so much has been done by way of breaking them up or toppling governments or interfering somehow. So this one asks, what is the solution? But it doesn't tell me what the problem is. It says, what role do you expect community college teachers to play in achieving your aspirations? I think college teachers can bring out this kind of knowledge in course material. This book, Being Different, is being prescribed for a course at the MA level in University of Delhi. So that's an interesting development. And in Banaras Hindu University, they're setting up they want to set up a new center for intercultural studies, and they want this book and other things like this to start teaching. So if you're in the academic world, if you're a teacher, you can think of bringing this kind of knowledge so that the next generation is more conscious of this. So can you comment on recent revelation that Christianity is on the decline in Europe, state Hinduism, I don't know, also in India, a decline in interest in spiritual matters? Why? Well, I don't know if there is a decline in spiritual matters because I also see a expanding in a different kind of spirituality, not necessarily linked to a particular identity or a denomination, but some kind of a generic spirituality is becoming more popular, if you will. And as far as decline of Christianity in Europe is concerned, that's a well-known fact. It's been going on for a long time. It doesn't really apply to the United States. I don't know about Canada, but it doesn't really apply to the United States, which is a very Christian country, very strongly Christian country. But in Europe, yes, there has been a decline. Now, I don't understand this question. Presently, our Swamijis are deluded by the Muslims, consider me as a kafir. Okay, all religions are the same, all identities are the same. These kind of slogans are Swamijis say, but the Muslims consider us infidel, and the Christians say that only through Jesus Christ will I go to heaven. So how do you rationalize? Yeah, so the way I rationalize is that we do not have an exclusivist claim, and the other faiths do. So if we are infidels to somebody else, that's how they see the world. But from our point of view, because we believe in reincarnation, we believe and karma, and not one life. We are not saying that if you are not on the right path, you'll go to hell forever. You'll just be born again under certain circumstances, and you'll have another chance to evolve. And this evolution is many lives will go on. Ultimately, eventually, you will find the true path, and you will evolve. So that's our system. We are not saying that if in this life you're not on a particular exclusive path, then you are sort of doomed. We're just not saying that. Our Swamis, though, are deluded in some cases by falsely kind of imagining that all religions are the same, because they clearly are not. And a large part of the reason for writing Being Different is to educate our own people about this fact, that there are serious differences, and you cannot have a one-sided equality, sameness. You cannot say, I'll become same as you, when the other guy says he's not going to become same as me. There's a very interesting video. If you go to the website beingdifferentbook.com, there's a tab called videos. So if you click, you will get lots of videos, 30, 40 events. Watch the one which is my conversation with Mark Tully. Mark Tully is a BBC correspondent, very famous in India, loves Hinduism. So we have a very interesting conversation for 1.5 hours. He says, I'm troubled that you are emphasizing difference. Why aren't you emphasizing how we are same? That's what he says. So I say, okay, we can be same. You can believe in karma and reincarnation, and we'll be same on that. So then he says, no, we can't, because it will violate their worldview, because their worldview of original sin, and then virgin birth, and then crucifixion, and then redemption, and one life, that is a separate set of axioms from karma and reincarnation. And if you take either side as the starting point, the other side is negated. So they are mutually contradictory. It's not that one is better than the other, but they are mutually not compatible. So he wants us to be the same. But then when I propose that he should be the same as me, he complains that he can't do it because he'll have to violate his Anglican church. Then I tell him that we believe in worshipping, that there's nothing wrong if you worship images. So you can put our images in the church and we can be same. And he says, but that will never be accepted. I said, well, but you want to be same. And so then we go on. We go on explaining why it won't work for the church to accept our images. And then after a while he says, yes, but Rajiv, why are we talking about differences? We should be the same. So I said, okay, we can be the same. You can accept all our avatars. That besides Jesus, there's many other avatars, many other incarnations. And he says, no, we'll be accused of polytheism. Nobody in the church will accept that. The point of this whole video is that a very, very decent, wonderful, well-meaning person who wants to be the same as me, ultimately it boils down to that, who wants us to be the same, ultimately it boils down to that I should become like him, not that he can become like me. So whenever somebody says we're all same, I say, you guys from Dharma should know how to answer. You should know the 3 or 4 important points to say, of course we are the same, but this is my principle, so I'm sure you will accept it to be the same. And that guy will say, no, no, I can't accept it. So you have to continue this discussion until the guy wears down, or it becomes very obvious that it's a game that won't work, because his idea that we are the same is on his terms, not on your terms. It's like if you're having a fight with your spouse, then, you know, one party could say, I'm sure we agree. Then the question is on whose terms you agree. You know, my wife might say, yeah, we agree. But then I might say, okay, but, you know, we agree because of, we agree on the basis of X, which is my position. But that may not be acceptable to the other person. In any disagreement, you can play this game of pretending that we are all in agreement. But the question is agreement on whose terms. So this is something our gurus need to learn a little bit more, I think. What do you suggest would be the best way of promoting dharmic traditions? Well, the best way is to first practice it yourself. Don't start by promoting what you don't practice. A lot of our people are leaders trying to become important or market, but they're not really clear on what they are doing. They're not doing it themselves, but they want to sort of market it because some kind of an ego trip or a political trip, it doesn't work. So you must invest the time, you must invest the energy, you must read, you must introspect to learn about what your dharma is, and then, you know, it'll just become very natural for you. Wherever you go, you'll be just sort of, it'll become part of your nature to talk about it. And that's how you can also propagate it. Now, we do need institutions, and there's a young man who's in charge of the Hindu youth organization. We were talking about it, and I appreciate what he said to me, that we need to build institutions. I think that's absolutely correct. We need to build institutions because individual efforts and individual propagation will not suffice if we don't have a force multiplier and a leverage which we can get through only institutions. So we do need to build institutions, and we also need exemplars who personify the dharma, the dharmic life, and through this combination of individuals who are exemplars and institutions, we can propagate. What would you suggest a university student should do to ensure that the world understand and promote Indian Hindu culture? Well, the world should not promote. Why would the whole world? I mean, everybody has their own culture. You should promote your culture and expect that Chinese will promote the Chinese culture, and an Islamic student will promote Islamic culture, and a Jew will promote Jewish culture. You should you shouldn't be imagining that they'll all promote your culture. It's for you to promote your culture and to be respectful of the fact that other people will promote their culture. So it's the same answer as the previous question. You must be better informed, and you should practice what you are believing in, what your principles are, and through that you can encourage other students to do the same. What is your message to the youth? How should they proceed? Well, I think I already answered in the previous question. The youth should study, understand their dharma, their civilization, live by it, integrate it into modern life, not think that it is something ancient and obsolete and irrelevant today, but understand how it relates to your life as a student, your life in a career, your life as a family person, your responsibility to society. Dharma is about many levels. It's my responsibility to my own self, my body, mind, and process, my responsibilities to family, my responsibilities to community, my responsibilities to society at large, my responsibilities to animals, plants, Mother Earth at large. So dharma is at many, many levels. So great speech, motivating, excellent facts. Thank you. When you talk about the various inputs of Indian civilization to Western thought, are you not keeping the Western framework as the primary one? No. What I'm saying is that as long as we keep our framework together, that's important. As long as we keep our framework together, others will take these ideas and use them as they want to. You really cannot stop that from happening. If it's a distortion, If it's a distortion, as I feel is happening in the case of yoga, for example, where somebody takes a dharmic idea and they put it into a different framework, and in order to make it fit, they have to modify it, they have to change its meaning, they have to change the metaphysics behind it. That to me is a problem, because they're distorting what it is. But if they are using it in a very sincere, authentic manner, then of course it's a good idea to spread these things. Christian Bharatnatyam and yoga, who is getting digested, Christians or us? Well, this is discussed in the book Breaking India. Bharatnatyam has become Christ Natyam in many places. They'll wear the costumes of Bharatnatyam, the same gestures, the same style music, but the story is not Krishna, it's about Christ. And so, because this is entertaining, this way they can go to a lot of villagers, they can go to public places and perform, and these performances draw a lot of audience. So many of the Bharatnatyam dance academies in India, in South India, and now I'm told even near Banaras, some important dance academies have been taken over by the church, because they hire teachers, good teachers, pay them a lot of salary, and most of them are Hindu teachers, and they teach this kind of a dance to students. And so then the next generation of students who graduate, they perform Christian Natyam, and they go around the world. There's one place in New Jersey, there's places in England, and they're performing these dances. There's a place in Austin. So what is happening is that the art form is becoming digested and made a part of Christianity, as is in the case of yoga. Now, the person who asked the question reflects a certain certain assumption which I want to clarify. Because by asking, are we digesting them, or they're digesting us, the assumption is that there is a sort of a reciprocal symmetry, which is not true. The exclusivity of Jesus, historical exclusivity of Jesus, one of a kind, absolute requirement you can't do away with to be a Christian, absolute requirement, non-negotiable. That is so strongly, such a strong point in the definition of Christianity, that when you merge something else and Christianity, as long as the merged entity has that historicity of Jesus in it, by definition you become a Christian. So if you do what you call puja, and you take off your shoes to enter the place of worship, and you wear a lungi, and you have a tilak, and you are bare-chested, and you wear saffron, and you speak in Sanskrit, and you have a Hindu name, you're doing all those things, and you're eating on palm leaves, you're eating with your hands, you're doing all those cultural things, you've got all those symbols also, and you've got that shank and you're blowing it, and you're sitting cross-legged and doing yoga, you're doing all of that. But you are accepting the historicity of Jesus, the original sin, the virgin birth, and all of those 3 or 4 major historical events, then you are a Christian. It doesn't matter how much of the Hinduism you brought in. It doesn't matter what asanas you're doing. It doesn't matter what Bharatnatyam you're doing. Because once you've brought in that history-centric idea in and accepted that, then you are a Christian. Because that requires a negation of all alternative historical claims, all other avatars, all other deities and images. So you have, whether you are told openly or not, you have ceased being a Hindu the moment you do that. So when there is a marriage of all your symbols and customs and rituals and ideas and philosophies with that history-centric belief, that one singular, absolute, exclusive historical event, that has the power of basically sucking in all that you have brought in with you and digested into becoming a Christian. It is not the other way around. To do the other way around, that is the purpose of this book, you would have to demand the other party to give up the exclusivity claim of Jesus, which they will not be willing to do. Because the moment they do that, then they have ceased being a Christian. So this is a very important point for you to understand. Okay, we are getting there almost. A community is invaded, invasion is defeated, the community then aims to organize itself. Hindu society has been fighting over 1,000 years. Now, how do we organize Hindu society? Well, I am not a political person, so I cannot help you in terms of some kind of a political organization. I believe that people who are building institutions like this young man behind us and many others should be encouraged and supported to build a lot of these kind of institutions. And I think what you can do is what you should think of, which is in your own life, become more knowledgeable, become more informed, become more articulate, practice it, talk about it, and that is the best thing you personally can do, and be an exemplar in that sense.
Please get a copy of the book and read it. You must read it. And we encourage you to form discussion groups, because there are many ideas in this book that are very new and will empower you to become a better Hindu. At the back of the book, there is also the website. It's called beingdifferentbook.com. And again, I want to encourage you to join that. If you go on the website, there is a join the discussion, and you just enter your email address, and you'll be included in the everyday distribution of issues that arise out of the discussion in this book. I can tell you that there are many, many, many issues that have arisen since this book was published. And the discussions are very lively, very informative, and it explains in more details some of the ideas that have been explored in this book. So please, get a copy. Unfortunately, we can't sell in here, but we'll have the book available just outside of the building, and contact one of our organizers. If you still don't have the funds available, but you want to get a copy of the book, contact one of us, and we will tell you how to go and get it. Thank you.
So the unity, the question was, how do you think, since Hindus don't have unity, what are we to do? You see, the diversity of dharma and the fact that the divine is manifest in infinite forms, and there are therefore so many ways of accessing the divine, gives you the freedom, gives you you're not going to be stuck in a box like some other faiths, and you're not going to be claiming exclusivity like some other faiths. But then on the other hand, it's tough to unify such people. It's easier to create unity when there is an exclusivity, when everybody has got just one idea, nothing else is tolerated, you can unify them. So that is a built-in weakness politically and militarily, I guess, that we have. So the best thing you can do is support big institutions, strong institutions that understand this pan-dharmic, pan-Hindu, pan-Indian civilization, and not just a narrow segment or a narrow denomination. And I think with the economic rise of our community, if we can build a few such institutions, we probably be in a good position to protect ourselves. Finally, it says, referring to dharmic life, am I correct to say that a person practicing Buddhism, Sikhism or Jainism is still practicing Hinduism? Some say they are connected. Well, Dharma is a family of faiths and traditions, like the Abrahamic family of Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And then within Christianity, there's Orthodox, there's Catholics, and then there's Protestants of many kinds, and there's Mormons who say they are Protestants, but Protestants say they are not. And then Islam with the Shiites and the Sunnis and Ismailis and Ahmadiyas, all these kind of sects. But they have a common Abrahamic family with certain common principles. So I am trying to create the philosophy of a similar family, which is broad and yet distinct from the Abrahamic family, and that's what I call the dharmic family. And within the dharmic family also there are many ways and there are many paths, and so there is Buddhism. Buddhism itself has many things inside it, and Jainism has more than one kind, and Sikhism has more than one kind, and certainly Hindu Dharma has many, many kinds. So I prefer the term dharmic family, dharmic civilization, because it brings a lot of diversity within it. And then I'm trying to understand and explain to others what are the common ingredients. It turns out that the 4 items that differentiate the dharma from the Western civilization are also 4 items that unify the different dharma civilizations, the different dharma schools. So understanding those fours solves two problems. It, on the one hand, tells you what unifies us, even though we have a lot of diversity, but what unifies us in the Dharma side. And it also tells us what differentiates us from the Western civilization that we need to protect. So that's why these four items, I think, are very important. Thank you very much. I think it's been a wonderful afternoon, and I look forward to having some more exchanges like that. Thank you.
And it has been a very intriguing afternoon. A lot of questions which were in the mind have been answered. And basically it has given me a direction of how we should be different and not basically convert or be digested by the Western civilization or the Western thought process. The other thing which I found quite interesting was the question and answer session, where he clarifies quite a few things, quite a few doubts about why we are a dharmic society, why we are Indians, and why we should be different. We at Forum for Hindu Awakening had in fact invited him for one of our Hinduism summit, which happened on the 10th of March. And it was very well received in New Jersey, and we hope that we continue working with him on a regular basis. We are currently on his blog also, where we are trying to answer some of his questions and be in the discussion.
Although the topic was not necessarily new, I thought, but it was a very concise and consolidated view of what the differences are. And it is very bold, I think, in modern terms. Lots of books and several topics have been discussed before by many people, but I think coming out in the academia circle, which has been dominated by the Western and the communist viewpoint, this is an amazing and a welcome change on presenting these ideas in being different. So the different dharmic views, the differences, and the bold proposition that we are not the same. The concepts are not the same. The fundamentals, the axioms are not the same. This is an amazing and appreciated topic to be discussed on, and I think this should be propagated more and more by not just by one person, Rajiv Malhotra, but all of us. It gives us confidence. It gives us empowerment on what we know and what we study, on the knowledge we gain. So I think I'm going to take this book back home. I've read parts of it already, and I think I will promote this wherever I go, and whichever organization I talk about, and whichever party I go to. I think I'll bring this topic up, and I think it's our job, our duty, to promote these ideas.